2 words. Follow me. Follow me. 2 life-altering words throughout the whole of the New Testament that you hear Jesus utter time and time again. This rabbi. You know, following rabbis is one of the most sought after things for a young disciple in the New Testament. But in order to follow a rabbi, you had to convince them of how much you knew, how much you'd learned, how much knowledge you had amassed. And even when all your references were in order, even when you knew everything there was to know from the Torah, the Talmud, the Mishnah, the Gemara, even when all of these things were in place, a rabbi could still turn around, look at you and say, nah, you're not ready. But not so with this young rabbi from Nazareth. He actually changes what it means to be a rabbi by not waiting for people to come and ask him. He actively seeks out disciples and says, follow me. He's so deeper than education, than status, than wealth, than great references. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things. But he knew that that would neither qualify or disqualify a person to be a disciple. What would qualify and disqualify would be the things you would hold on to when the kingdom called your heart. The things that you felt were much more important than the call of God to follow me. So many went to Jesus wanting to follow. Like the rich young ruler, they walked away. Why? Because they had many possessions. They had many possessions. And yet he repeats the statement time and time again. And look at the people who follow him. He has zealots and political insurrectionists and socially awkward people and people who are spiritual deists. All kinds of people whose lives are changed by those 2 words. Follow me. I heard those 2 words as a 17-year-old hiding in the back of an evangelistic tent in North London. I heard this man preach the gospel of Jesus Christ and talk about this Jesus that I'm speaking about. And as he spoke about him, I just felt the eternity in my soul that felt so empty, just being filled and filled and filled. And I heard Jesus say, Eddie, follow me. I was a 17-year-old, and that's when I first gave my life to Jesus Christ. I walked away at 19, but at 25, he came back and he reminded me of who he was. He reminded me of the life that we had. He reminded me of the grace that I had been filled with. And once again, he reminded me that my life was called to him. And he called me with those 2 words, follow me. Like all people who have followed Jesus Christ, I am a perfect example of what it looks like when human expectation meets divine reality. I have found in this journey more than I went looking for. I have discovered more than I was searching for. Like Peter, I've denied him. Like Judas, I've betrayed him. Like Thomas, I've doubted him. And when life got hard, like those other disciples, because of hardship and pressure, I found my heart drifting. But when the dust of life settled, once again, I heard those 2 words saying, Eddie, follow me. I don't claim to know all there is to know about God. I always say that our experience is our expertise. So I can't say all there is to know about God, but I can say with deeper conviction that I'm beginning to understand how God feels about me and what me being a follower of Jesus Christ means for me. So let me share with you some of those things. I believe that my whole life is given to the following of Jesus Christ. And what that looks like is worked out each day in the daily grind of life. I believe that following Jesus means relinquishing control of my heart to be in control. Because there are some things that I just can't control and will never control. But turning over trust to him in a much deeper way, to determine for me the direction he's taking me in and to give me the courage to stay the course. Following Jesus for me has meant learning to live with no, even though I know that he can do everything that I'm asking for, but trusting that his no is as good and as solid and as for my good as him saying yes. I've learned that being in God's will doesn't always mean I have to be in all of God's plans. but staying in the space that he has carved out for me and journeying in that space means understanding his will in the immediate and seeing his will in retrospect and trusting his will in the future. Following Jesus has meant parking my expectations of what I think he should be doing in my life, even when all the indicators say, yeah, this is what should be happening right now. And understanding that a life of faith does not always follow in straight lines, but a life of faith always follows in a forward direction. But above all, following Jesus has meant a life of growth, growing down deeper in order to grow up stronger. Growing down deeper in order to grow up stronger. It has meant surrendering, and surrendering means that I stop fighting God in the areas that he's trying to grow me, especially the difficult areas. It means I surrender and allow that surrender to find deeper roots and greater growth. Listen, I continue to follow, and I have not arrived by no stretch of anyone's imagination, but I do know that the journey that I'm going on speaks to where God has been with me, where God is with me, and where God will be with me. My prayer is that your heart responds and your heart opens when you hear Jesus say, "Follow me."